All right, welcome to another episode of the Esports Classroom Podcast. Again, just a little project for you, interviewing a lot of people connected to esports, just get different perspectives and what's going on, what's worked well, and stuff like that. So I got Josh with me tonight, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Josh, who you are, what's your current role, and then you can get into like how'd you get started with esports?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Patrick. Happy to be here. Stoked to be on the podcast. My name's Josh. I am the Gravity Gaming Solutions Director for ByteSpeed. We're an IT manufacturing and reseller company based out of Moorhead, Minnesota. So you'll definitely hear that in my accent as we talk. I tend to sound more Norwegian than most people. But I've been at ByteSpeed for almost 7 years in this role, kind of directing our department that's in charge of esports all across the country. Our partnerships and our relationships, and also, the manufacturing and kind of taking care of our customers. Before that, I was actually a ByteSpeed customer as well. So I've been on both sides of it. In 2016, I was the first head coach and program director at a small college in North Dakota, University of Jamestown. We started one of the first 20 or so varsity collegiate programs in the country. So I did that for 3.5 years. We got all of our tech through ByteSpeed. So then I got to know the crew over here through that experience. And then in the spring of 2019 was kind of looking for a change and found myself working here. And now, here we are, like I said, almost 7 years later.
Yeah. So what titles were you playing when you were at Jamestown?
Yeah, so back in the day, it was not as fleshed out of a collegiate scene as it is now. So
Yeah.
we started with kind of like the four biggest titles that I could find kids for. We had League of Legends, Overwatch 1,
Yeah.
Hearthstone, and the very beginnings of like a Rocket League team. So it was really, really early on. So we were recruiting Rocket League and Fortnite kind of during my tenure. But that's kind of where we started, was with the OG titles. Things have changed quite a bit. Jamestown's added kind of a bunch of other ones. They've got a really successful Rainbow Six team now, and they've added Smash and Fortnite and kind of the whole big list. But we started with just a few titles back in the day, and we had 13 students my first year that we actually had a roster. And when I left, we were at 35, and now they're at damn near 60.
Yeah. I had Nate Rodemeyer on for a little while, a couple episodes ago, Marshalltown Community College. And of course, he said they started with 20. Now they're up to 90 just in the few years that he's been there. Now, League of Legends is actually an interesting one because that's one we see a lot of numbers dropping.
Yep.
Or I kind of think our own state league is going to have trouble with that next year, possibly. Even right now, I think we only have a couple teams at most for Smite. And so that genre of game, I'm thinking we're seeing fewer students interested in that, at least the ones who are coming out for esports.
Yep. Yeah. I think like with League, especially, the learning curve is just so steep.
Yep.
It's like if you've never played before and you're a freshman in high school that's on your esports program and is like going to jump in, there's so much. I mean, there's like 15 plus years of knowledge and patches and things to know and items and characters, and the list goes on and on and on. So it's really daunting. When we started at Jamestown, that was kind of like the glory days of CLOL, where it was, still just the four regional, divisions. And it was, fairly, the game was in a much different spot where I think it was a little easier to jump in. But that was 10 years ago. We're in a spot now where like my preferred MOBA nowadays is Pokemon Unite because 10 minutes is all I can handle.
Yep. Now, I remember when our leagues first picked up Smite, I tried to learn that, and the amount of time it took for just one game. I'm like, I don't have that kind of time to learn a game that deftly because I want to play multiple rounds, and it's that long just for one. I know as a coach, I kind of like to leave the school at some point too. That's why I love coaching Rocket League, because our matches are never more than like 40 minutes. I'm like, yep, we're done. All right, let's go home.
Super easy. Yep.
Yeah, Overwatch 2, however, Valorant, make sure you have dinner, warmed up when you get home.
For sure. Yeah.
So think about that, your experience from going from college now to supporting schools in different ways and just being able to see that. What are some of those biggest changes you've seen either on the high school scene or even on the college scene?
Man, I mean, like the de facto answer is just like the organization of the
Yep.
space is a lot better. Like 10 years ago, like there was no Iowa High School Esports Association, right? Like
Hmm.
it was like kind of the tail end of the high school star league. The OGs will know what that means. But like there was very little from an organizational standpoint, and I think like the just like the biggest changes has been these awesome grassroots organizations popping up, and the developers kind of getting their stuff together, kind of, and in other places not so much. Um, on the collegiate side, that was back when TESPA still was around and ran the Overwatch and Hearthstone competitions, and like Heroes of the Storm, those type of games that don't have as big of an investment, at least from an organization like that. Now it's, third parties that are running things, and
Yep.
there's been a lot more kind of centralization that's happened. From a nuts and bolts perspective, the student athletes are just getting better and better and better. The games obviously have changed over the years. And I think like, if I think back to 2016, like there wasn't a blueprint for how to run a program back then
Hmm.
either. I remember I called Kurt Melcher at Robert Morris, which is now Roosevelt University in Chicago, and they were like one of four that had a team, and they were, kind of like they get all the accolades for being the first varsity program. But I called Kurt Melcher back then. I was like, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this. Are we crazy? How are you doing it? Tell us your secrets." And we had like a really great like 2 hour long phone call, and that was it for industry knowledge back then.
Yep.
And now we've got groups like NACAD and other coaches organizations, and like we've had time to kind of like invent the wheel. Now where like if a new program spins up, whether it's high school or college,
Hmm.
um, there have been people who have done this before and been really successful. And you can emulate those programs. Whereas like, when I started, it was like shot in the dark, hope this works out. And I guess we'll like build the airplane while we're flying it kind of thing.
Yeah, I think even just seeing from when I started in 2020 to now, like nice thing with the state league, there's a lot more people involved, over
Yeah.
150 schools now.
Yep.
You talk about Minnesota, I know there's a big state league up there too. And so that's nice to see. And then like we just talked with Wisconsin, executive director of Wisconsin State League. And we have all these that are pointing up, but then you have all these coaches who have been there and are
Yeah.
always, and that's one thing I think I've seen is common is that coaches are willing to share. They're not
Yep.
trying to hide industry secrets or, like
Yeah.
give that competitive edge. They've been willing to share that out.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that that's like something really unique about our space. Like, it would be very rare, I think, to see like a Division 1 football coach spilling the secret sauce to,
Yep.
a new coach at their same level, right? Where it's like, in esports, I feel like we're all trying to lift each other up and make sure that the space is sustainable and it's around for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So I think that there's a much more um, eagerness and like I don't want to say like a relaxed nature to it, but more of an open mind to kind of help people get started because that's good for everybody.
Yep. I think we all just want better programs. Our students
Yeah,
get better competitions and everybody, the system grows. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Um, I think I was trying to think of one thing. You said, well, even just talk about the games, the titles are changing. Talk about the complexity of league, and I want to go back to that for a second. Like when we think about games, easy to get kids in. Like I see a lot of
Yeah,
kids interested in Smash, a lot of kids interested in Mario
yep,
Kart because it's easy to play.
yeah,
Where it's the games that take a little bit more time, and I get a lot of kids who want to play Fortnite, but we don't do that as a league. I'm like,
yep,
yeah, sorry guys, we don't do that, but we can play Overwatch. You can play
yeah,
Overwatch 2, Valorant, and we're going to do Marble Rivals in the spring. Of course, that one's getting a lot of attention from kids.
yeah.
I mean, I enjoy it too, but I just don't play it that much. So, kind of think about that. So, what are some of the other challenges you've seen maybe right now, or maybe some of the wins? Like, what are those biggest things that you've seen from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's fun for me to be in the position that I'm in now because I get to see kind of the 10,000 foot view of
Hmm.
programs all across the country, right? So, I think like still some of the biggest hurdles are kind of like the beyond just like, hey, budget to be able to build a program,
Yep.
or a teacher or a coach to actually be the kind of the one steering the ship. Those are still, today some of the biggest hurdles that have kind of prevented schools at all levels,
Hmm.
to building programs. But I think as far as like some of the wins, I think we've and some people might have a different perspective on this, but I think we've kind of like beaten the, oh, this is just playing video games trope. I know in some states that's still very much part of the conversation, but I
Yeah.
look like Iowa, right? Like three state championships a year, over 100 schools that are participating, thousands of students. Like when a new school in Iowa wants to start esports, it's not this like, oh, we're paying to have kids play video games. It's a like, no, the district down the road has three state championships and we're falling behind.
Yep.
And I think that that's a thing in Missouri and Ohio and Texas and all over the place, right? So I think we've come a long way, kind of like destigmatizing what this means in an education environment. I also think that the career pipeline is a lot clearer. I'm not gonna, I have a kind of a unique experience on this because like my
Hmm.
job didn't exist 10 years ago, right? I am, and like even you as a coach or a part of the state association, like those careers, those opportunities weren't there before this kind of all got kicked off. So there are now careers and companies that have sprung up that support the industry and are moving things in the right direction. There's also a lot of kind of like murkiness and kind of like where that goes. But I think like Marshalltown is an amazing example of a
Yep.
college program that's preparing students for work in the esports industry, but that also ties into other careers that are out there, getting students educations, being able to pay for colleges, getting scholarships for those kids, opening doors to, changing lives, which is kind of like my, um, one of my favorite stories from being a coach. And I only did it for 3 years, so
Hmm.
take it for what it is. But I recruited a student out of the Denver area who was really good at Fortnite. It was just kind of in the beginning stages of getting that team put together. So we didn't even have a roster that was competing yet, but we were building one. And I talked to this student and I was like, hey, I want you to come to Jamestown over Christmas break. And I know that that probably sounds like the dumbest thing in the world to bring a kid from, the big city to rural North Dakota in the middle of the wintertime. But we got him on campus. He stayed over the weekend. We got him to come in and like be in a practice with our students, and um, ended up signing this kid, getting him a scholarship, a small one, like not even close to a full ride, but enough to where like, hey, with academics and esports put together, like we moved the needle financially for him.
Yeah.
And he was able to come to college. And I got a phone call from his mom when he got back, after he had gotten back to Denver, received our like official offer of the scholarship. And she called me and was like, thank you so much. Like my son would not, like, we can't afford to send him to college without this.
Hmm.
And I just think of like, that's the kind of story that is so impactful. There's like, it's one kid that like maybe his life changes totally because he can go to college. And that experience is not mutually exclusive to Jamestown. It's happening all over the country. And so I think about the good that we've been able to do, kind of back to your original question of like some of the wins. Throw a dart at the board and you'll find one.
Yeah.
The space isn't perfect. There's still a lot that needs to get better and to be kind of fleshed out and ironed out. But for as young of an industry as we are, I think things are going really, really well. And there's like a cause to be proud of what we've done so far.
Yeah. Well, to go back to like talking about, I thought when I came to Ames, after being innovative for a couple of years, I thought I was all right for that conversation about why we should do it. But yeah, they're on board right away. I'm like, well, that was easier. Even
Yeah.
for the school board, I'm like, nope, didn't have any questions. Like, cool.
Yeah.
And then I had a similar story to you. I mean, I had a student whose parents told me that the kid wasn't thinking about college until he got that esports scholarship offer. And I'm like, there we
Yep.
go. There's at least he took that chance. I mean, that
Yeah.
gave him an opportunity. Maybe he didn't take that. It may not work, but at least he tried.
Yep.
I think that's one of the things. And then the career aspect. I remember when I went to up to Rocker, that was a professional esports team up in Minnesota. They're
Yeah.
not
Yep.
they're not connected to the Vikings as much. I went to when it was Vikings training camp because
Yeah.
I have to go to Vikings training camp every year anyways. I'm
Of
like, ooh, we can go and tour an esports professional organization. I'm like, I'm going in there.
Yeah.
And I was talking with them all the time. I say, hey, I'm an esports coach. So tell me about jobs the kids could have. He's like, well, you see all those empty desks. They're supposed to be filled with people connected to esports. It may not
Yep.
be the best players, but we need content creators. We need communicators. We need people to help the team. And I'm like, that's awesome. And then he
Yeah.
told me how much to get paid. And I'm like, well, I should do this instead because more than I was making at the time.
Yeah.
But that was nice to see that there are those organizations out there. There are a lot of careers, not even just connected to esports. I had a kid create our logo for Ames High Esports just because give them an opportunity to do something real and authentic, and we still use that logo today.
I mean, it's like building portfolios and like teaching skills and like we know sports are a good thing, right? We
Yep.
we know being a part of a team and being in some kind of an activity is a really good thing. Doesn't matter if it's sports or fine arts or whatever. I played 2 sports in high school and then did like 5 other things. Like I did speech and theater and all this kind of stuff. All of those things are really, really good. And it's kind of tired to say, but like there are students that don't do any of that, and
Yep.
esports is their thing. And for them to be able to learn those skills, whether they work in esports or not, whether they go and play on a collegiate team or not, those are valuable things for those students to
Mm-hmm.
experience and learn. And that's going to set them up for success long term. Whether it's just like, hey, I found a friend finally, or a space to be, I found a community. That's massive. It could be like, hey, I put together, graphic design materials like logos, like you were talking about, or film clips, or like I did this editing job or whatever. That's like tangible stuff that they can take for applications, and somebody could use that to open doors to a lot of different things.
Yep. I'm actually trying to get a couple of my former players from Nevada who are now at Marshalltown. They've won back-to-back national championships in Mario Kart. We had 2 state titles with them while at Nevada. And I'm trying to get their perspective. I'm going to get that done hopefully soon. But I want to hear from them. Like, I've heard from so many coaches about those positives. I want to make sure we hear from the students themselves too. And so
For sure.
obviously I picked 2 I know who are going to be willing to say good things, hopefully.
Yeah.
So I think one thing you touched on was, and it was kind of just for a bit, but like I do think one of the challenges a lot of schools are still facing is a funding issue.
Yep.
I mean, because again, this is something where we need tech. I mean, that is obviously the thing. I don't want kids to have to bring in like an Xbox to play. I want them to have computers at school. And we were lucky enough in Ames, we put that into a new building. So everybody just needs to build a new building and then get equipment then.
Yep.
And we just actually started a fundraiser today, but we already got $335 on day one. I'm like, yay. I need Nintendo Switch 2 consoles now.
Sure.
That's
almost there.
That's that's like 2/3. We're most of the way there,
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that's one of those challenges there is getting that technology and then getting good technology that's going to last, because a lot of the esports coaches I talk with, they're not that techy always. Some are connected to tech, but I've talked with a lot of esports coaches who don't understand a lot around networking or anything like that. So they always need that support with the technology piece, because they're about coaching the kids and may not be like making sure that the computer is actually running the best it can.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there are so many schools where like, the superintendent or the principal finds the history teacher and says, "Hey, we're doing esports, go figure it out."
Mm-hmm.
And they're a great fit to be a coach, but they don't have that technology background. So there is a little bit of like an education piece that has to happen. And, we talk about it all the time of like, you have to have a good relationship with your IT department.
Yep.
And if you're looking at kind of starting a program, there's a lot of different ways to do that at various capital, levels. You talk about Nintendo Switch, that's the best, quickest, easiest,
Yep.
most cost-effective way to start an esports program. You can buy a Switch off the rack at Target for $350. if you're going like an OLED or something.
Hmm.
And and you've got a Smash team, you've got a Mario Kart, system right there. And that is such a low barrier to entry that it might not be the same level of student involvement that you would get if you had a PC lab or something, but that gives you a start. And then it's all about building that kind of like proof of concept and saying, hey, we spent $500. We have a Switch and a couple controllers and like a nice TV maybe or something.
Yep.
Or like, hey, we connected it to the smart board that's in every classroom right now. And so we've got that. And then I have 30 kids that are pounding on the door saying, let us play, let us play, let us play. What do I do with those students?
Yep.
And I think like being able to take that energy and that excitement and transform that into a space and a home is really important. But like not every school is in a financial position to be able to pull the trigger on a $50,000 lab.
Yeah.
Um, we've seen some help in that regard. There's a lot of schools that will dual use their machines for curriculum stuff during the day, whether it's like CAD, Adobe, some type of editing software or coding or computer science or whatever that needs a little bit more oomph than the Chromebook that the kids are carrying around.
Hmm.
And that's a great way to kind of like say, hey, we're going to use it during the day for curriculum and for learning, but also it's at the end of the day, it's a gaming computer, right?
Yep.
And that's helped. But it is kind of that like tipping point of like we can only do so much. Like I present all over the country, and one of the things when I talk about budgeting is like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what department it is. It can be IT, it could be athletics, it could be underwater basket weaving. I don't care. But it should be treated like your other traditional sports or your other
Yep.
activities that have an annual sustainable budget. Now, it doesn't have to be $90,000 a year. It can be a couple thousand or a couple hundred even, but something that you can rely on and say, okay, every year we can at least do something. And then you
Hmm.
supplement that with grants and fundraising and other stuff. And hopefully that gets you there. The good thing is, technology nowadays and kind of with the state of esports and where we're at, the tech that you're going to buy today should last a good long time. And like, we went 10 years with not really needing to push the envelope on like what we needed for like a minimum requirement system. Marvel Rivals kind of has thrown that into a wrench. Overwatch 2, a little more technically demanding
Yep.
nowadays. So there have been some games in the recent past that have come out that have said, "Hey, you need a little bit stronger of a machine to play." But again, you can start small. I think that there's a little bit of an arms race at the collegiate level for sure. Of like we have to build the biggest, fanciest labs out there because that's a recruiting tool, and that's
Yep.
that's what gets the kids excited to stay and be a part of that program. But on the opposite side of that, we've got high schools that are just beg, borrow, and stealing everything they can to start. And that is just as valuable of a program. I think, money's always going to be something that's a disparagement, no matter what we're talking about. But hopefully, the longer we do this, the more success stories that come out, the better outcomes that we see, that'll help turn the tide in that department. And we will see schools kind of say, this is financially worth it to improve the standings of our students.
Yeah.
And I think that we've seen time and time again that the schools that do it right, that money is really well spent.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, our computer lab is dual purpose. It's there for AutoCAD or business classes.
Yeah,
But when those devices were bought, it was also the idea of we want to be able to support something more down the road if we got esports going.
100%.
And that's when I came in. I'll give a shout out to Gravity Gaming because our machines are Gravity Gaming machines and they've worked great. I mean, I know they're not like the ultimate beast for gaming, but they are doing such a great job. I think I need to buy some better monitors. I think that's my next
Sure.
little upgrade, just a little
Yeah.
bit, get the kids to
Yep.
stop talking about 74 hertz so much. But it's been that thing. Like they get by.
Yeah.
I have one new prospective student coming in, but he's like, I've only played Xbox before. I'm like, well, you're going to play PC because we don't
Yep.
have Xbox, but it's going to be good for you because you can still
Yep.
use your controller. Nothing wrong with being a controller player. I'm a controller player. You know, I always support that. So kind of wrapping up a little bit, is there anything else you want to share out? I want to make sure I give you an opportunity to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I just like number one, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.
And then like for all of the listeners and stuff, like if you run a high school program, a college program, if you're involved with esports at all, just like thank you for what you do. I know it's kind of the hours can be long. It's stressful. You know, you're spending time away from your family, but you are making a huge impact in your students' lives. So, like first and foremost, thank you. Um, and you know, for the members of like the state associations out there, like I know how much time and effort it takes to organize and run the seasons and open up those opportunities for everybody. So like hats off to anybody that's directly organizing things. We just came from the Heck conference in Indiana last week,
Hmm.
and we got to work with the IEN board on putting together like a showcase for the conference, and got to show off esports to a lot of new schools. And just like having the kids there being able to play is just like that's what motivates me and like pumps me up. You know, like my job day to day is a lot of like sitting on Zoom calls and staring at spreadsheets, and then you know getting to see it live and in person always fires me up. So I guess like the thing that I want to say to everybody is just like thank you for what you do. And if there's ever anything that we can do to help, give us a call. Even if it's just to like, hey, I know you were a coach back in the day. What did you do with this? And I love talking about this stuff and sharing my experiences. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here. And just like, yeah, thank you to all the coaches and the directors and the board members out there that make this possible.
Well, definitely thank you for being on, and I ditto everything you said there, especially the state boards. But yeah, so thanks again. So this has been the Esports Classroom Podcast. We'll have some more episodes coming out. So now on Apple Podcasts too. That only took a couple minutes up last night. So all right, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick.